like we are the youngest continent in a way, and that means that we're going to be the future workforce.
Yeah.
Every country is going to require Africans to work. So the irony of it really is a catch-22 because you're like, okay, we can't use you, but we will need you.
But we will need you. And you're still surviving, hey? Like, it's just crazy.
Which is weird. But I think for me, like, the fascination is the how do we now move out of that conundrum? Like, of saying, okay, cool, this is how we can empower ourselves and gain agency. You've seen political responses. There's a lot of pullouts. For example, with Trump being in the presidency office, aid funding kind of like disappeared in so many countries that exposed us to so many vulnerabilities. And of course, for example, some minority identities like LGBTQ, who are always at the highest risk end of that, you would see the scrambling around. And I think you always find yourself almost like thinking, okay, cool, is there belonging? And if so, who decides that I belong? Why do they have to decide that I belong?
Gives them the right.
Who gives them the right? And where does the power and trust come from? Because we didn't establish that.
Yeah. How would we establish that?
Yeah.
Back to you. I think this is more in your
arena.
Scope of work and arena.
I think for me, like it's an interesting question that I always seek to untackle and debacle, because when you look at how the space has almost different generations have tackled belonging or inclusion. I mean, the first wave, I think when we connected, you also asked me that question, like how is the space professionally versus global north and versus global south? And the truth of the matter is, from what I've really kind of like gleaned at is when in the scene, when we started, the industry started from a legal response. When the civil rights came out, we started doing sensitivity training, informing white people that now you're going to be working with black people. This is the do's and don'ts. So we kind of like introduced sort of checklist behaviors, and it became like, okay, cool. There's certain things that you can't say. There's some things you can't do. Even when women entered the workplace, we saw that when suffrage rights became more accessible to all different groups, people started to become. People needed that awareness and that education to become more accessible to correct certain behaviors.
Which is crazy.
Which is weird. Because you're like, how do you teach someone to be a human being? Because you are a human being.
You're a human being. Why must I teach you how to human?
Yeah. Which is like the weirdest thing. But unfortunately, it is a space that has emerged with belonging. Because it's such a big political and insidious question too. So the first generation, of course, of that work was largely about sensitivity training, I would say, desensitizing and sensitizing. Yeah. And I think post after that, we had now different demographics come into play. Young versus old, and of course different neurodiversity elements coming into the workplace now that we find ourselves. And fast forward into different areas of disruptions, public health intersected into that. Intersectionality became more pronounced because, you are more than one thing.
Yes.
And you interact with different systems at the same time. So belonging become much more complex than a simple training exercise and a simple training checklist. And it became even more complicated than a legal compliance question. It became more multifaceted into business units, into different HR wings. And even now when you spell it out from a representation perspective, right? Even still today, when you look at the world map of representation, Fortune 500, even when you look at the Fortune 1000, statistically, we are just nowhere to be found. We are occupying less than 2% of representation globally. That is even from a male gaze perspective, not looking at the women of color who actually need to occupy those C-suites. So belonging is a big question. It's a stubborn question because it hasn't moved the needle since ever we've emerged into the space. My invite now to this question is, how then does public health help us move the needle from a broader sense to understand ourselves and to say, okay, cool, we share a same burden. I think in COVID there was a saying that said, we all face the same storm, but we're all in different boats. Do we all need bunkers, or do we need more donation and funding? Who does it come from?
And also, depending on who it comes from or where it comes from, they have their own agenda.
True. What would be the biggest misconceptions would you say around this topic?
Bandile, your questions. Oh my goodness.
Unfortunately, we're not that bubble gum. We're not that bubble gum.
No.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to answer this question because I don't know.
Yeah. And actually, that's the truth of the matter, because I think
I don't know.
we live with so many intersectionalities, right, that compound the problem. And I'm thinking to myself, even now with AI, when we talked about AI, Guti, yes, it's the monster that will never go away. It is here to stay.
Yes.
We are here in an AI reality, and the AI reality now is a bit scary, because now even you say companies that do the research, they no longer need much heavy thinking, because you've signed your rights away to AI.
You signed your rights away to AI. But AI also comes with its own limitations. True. Because also the current AI tools that we're using, where are they coming from?
And most of them are incorrect.
They're incorrect, and are they sensitized to our context?
And even so, they ignore the black population a lot.
They ignore the black population, and therefore don't understand the full picture of a black person. So, you're touching on quite a lot of, just thinking about AI as well in the public health space. And it also, it is a tool that is useful, that can cut down on a lot of time that you normally would have put into research, I guess. But at the same time, a lot of things are incorrect. It does perpetuate the misinformation. But I think for me, it's also, what I'm seeing about it is that it lacks context quite a lot.
And bias too, and it was so strange when I was doing my readings as well. AI itself told me that it's not AI itself that actually propagates the bias. It's the people who design the tool, because they carry bias. Because remember, you and I carry bias.
But don't you say that it gets trained by what we put into it?
It does.
But
the thing is, you see, remember when Google came?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you were to search the most beautiful people, you only show white people. And it would be like the old model that we all custom know, blue eyes, blonde, whatever. But you have to either specify black, and you will struggle to kind of create that whole holistic look of how black beauty is previewed. Yeah. Or even from a colorism perspective. Now, the people who created these tools, there are people who are from wealthier countries.
The global north.
Yeah. And we've always canvassed, but why are algorithms so discriminatory to so many people? And that also informs, for example, how people approach research in Africa, how people approach people who are, I don't know about you, but it almost feels like Africa is a zoo to pick, So it is a struggle to how do you now desensitize and sensitize people? And also give people okay, cool, this is a great, fantastic tool, but beware of it, because people can just easily adjust. We've seen so many scandals already. Even people that are in leadership or in public roles, they blatantly trust whatever it spits.
Yeah.
Because it does sound nice.
That's the thing. But actually now when you're mentioning it, I'm thinking about access as well. Because even the whole point of me saying, how with LLMs, large language models, I think ChatGPT is an LLM. Or it learns from
a generative situation.
Yeah. But essentially, because I'm thinking as well, where they say that with AI, for instance, it is learning from the input that you put in. So especially with the free versions, there is that clause in the terms and conditions that if you didn't know, now you know. But actually you are training it with your information. So even people putting in their pictures and all of that, I was like, you guys are brave. Putting your picture into ChatGPT. But it's, essentially it's similar to all the other LLMs, right? But my thing about it now, I thought of it in terms of access. Yeah. Because now I'm thinking, fine, you're training this LLM, but then whatever it gets, it's still going to be limited. Because who accesses it? Think about us here in the global south. How many people have access to internet or to, and then therefore as a result, so it continues the bias that it came with, and there's not enough of us that actually will train us with our realities. So it kind of perpetuates that. But I think your point of it is here to stay. unfortunately. And I do think, as someone who's like worked in tech for a bit, I do think that, not even for a bit, for most of my adult life as well, I do think that it is something that needs to be taught to people.
Yeah.
You need to understand how it works, and therefore its limitations.
So how do you make it now? How do you make your space more accessible now, given now where you are at, given the whole broader experience? What is changing?
Accessible in what sense?
In terms of you providing people tools to be empowered themselves, to gain agency, to move around and have better mobility. I think mobility is one of the biggest issues. Whether you are in corporate or in your space, moving to the next journey, to the next stop, it feels like there are so many ceilings, and most of them are so invisible.
That's true.
And I think intersection makes it harder because, when you go into, let's say, a boardroom or a space or the table in front of you, it's hard to even feel seen or to feel like your voice is being heard, because it's almost like, well, you're just here to be a seat warmer.
Yeah, and it feels like you don't really have actual control. But how do you handle it in the workspace? I'm thinking from your perspective. How is it handled? Because from my
it's a lot of code switching.
Code switching?
Yeah, I think, because, it's all about this whole narrative about being your authentic self, which is true to some extent for people who have power dynamics.
Yes.
You can come and treat like, hey, this is a family business, because we all know it is a family business.
Yeah, exactly. Like, some people can afford to be authentic.
Yeah.
We can't all afford to be authentic. We know this.
So there's a lot of code switching to kind of have a survival mentality about mobility.
Until when?
But that's the thing, because you have burnout, which is a big social burden. You have now like health inequalities, because now you have depression, which is quite a big wave.
Yeah.
Impacts a lot of people professionally and socially. You have chronic illnesses. Debilitating social outcomes.
That's true. And like, I guess it also just pours a little bit into like the lack of belonging. And it speaks about that as well. And it's crazy. You live in South Africa. How do you not belong? This is your home.
Yeah.
How is it that I'm expected to code switch? Until when? So what would be the better outcome, or like the better solution long term? Would it be to train systems? Because even when you touched on sensitizing people or like desensitizing people, is it going to be the same but now with systems that are in place?
But I think what's happening now, from what I'm seeing now, of course now we're in the war of DI times, but I think war has not disappeared. I mean, DI or inclusion or belonging has not disappeared fully. It is just evolved in the sense that you have better agency to now, okay, cool, you can use AI for a bit shy of its limitations. You can use it to also like pin drop your own experiences, because we've become very vulnerable as people to AI.
Yeah.
Whether you're a psychologist or an advisor or you want to invest, AI is your friend.
Hey,
dear Chatty.
Hey, it knows too much about us. Too much.
So I think it is good in the sense that it allows your agency to be better informed. Yes, there's a risk to it.
Yeah.
But there's less of a savior complex to it, in the sense that you are not relying on someone who has bigger power to come and save you, which is what code switching relies on, right? You are relying on sponsorships far better than you rely on your own agency to carry you through.
Okay.
Right? Because in corporate or in the workplace, you need three different types of leadership around your talent.
Okay.
Mentorship.
Okay.
Right? Sponsorships and leadership or leadership development. Because talent doesn't survive alone.
Yeah.
So, meaning that you need people who are able to speak your name in different circles. And that is largely about what sponsorship is all about.
Okay.
So I'm able to sponsor you and say, hey, I know Thandi Magwai. I'm going to speak to her about her excellent work and about her accessible educational content in different rooms that I am in, because I am your sponsor and I'm your ally, right? But we don't have a lot of those. in the workplace, because number one, there's a lot of interpersonal dynamics. Depending on how well you are similar to me, or if I like you from a cultural fit perspective, which is a questionable thing, right? Because which cultural fit are we talking about? Is it the Zulu culture, the Swati culture, the Xhosa? Which culture fit are you talking about?
Yes.
So it becomes very diabolical in a way, because like, why is there a fit of culture when I must be my authentic myself?
And
so in the large way, so belonging is evolving, and it's evolving also about governance, as you say, like AI governance. How do we control the powers that negotiate the human intervention of AI? How do we control the research, the R&D capacity? How do we prioritize even the journal and the academic contributions of that space? Is it only relying on Ivy Leagues globally, which have played a historical big role, and we all know that Ivy Leagues are gate-kept.
Yeah.
They are strongly gate-kept. So it becomes a challenge, but I think that the biggest opportunity is that belonging has not disappeared. It has just reinforced itself to the bigger problem that we've always narrated, that we need systemic belonging, not human saviors,
How do you achieve that? What does that look like? Like systemic belonging? Because now I'm thinking, I guess also when you're looking at like the people involved, it's everyone is coming with their own maybe culture, their own way of being. How do you take that and form that into like one system that's coherent, that works together?
I mean, if to be fair, I think if you look at what we've demonstrated, our capabilities as a people, if you think of, for example, right now we are using this sound system, right? But largely when you create content and you disseminate it, you have to think about the people who need to hear it and how they're going to hear it, how they're going to consume it. And that's where belonging becomes systemic, right? It becomes about how is it that, for example, like websites, how are they accessible?
Okay.
Right? Is it for screen readers, whatever? Luckily, for example, you have an Apple ecosystem that is largely accessible dominated.
Yeah.
So you can customize it to your accessibility standards.
Okay.
So it's about the design process of it. How do we design an environment that works ergonomically, that works not just economically, but that is health conducive, that allows your talent to thrive regardless of your background, regardless of your abilities? That becomes more of a design question, less about politics, about belonging.
Okay.
For example, bathrooms, how do we make them more accessible? How is it that we can make spaces much more less restrictive from a functionality perspective? Roles and jobs. AI has transformed traditional roles and jobs. Now you no longer have to rely a lot of your mental energy on coding and becoming the most astute coder.
Yeah.
AI can do that flawlessly now. You just need to know how to become a decision maker that can prioritize design outcomes to match the outcome that you want to do for an impact. So the evolution is there. It's just that it's gaining a different language.
Okay.
Design is becoming more of the question, like, accessible housing, decent housing. Like, for example, Cape Town is notorious for property markets that are not so favorable to an affordable standard for people who live in the city. You find that, for example, even professionally, roles and advertisements in the old world were so restricted to, for example, you needed a driver's license. The reality is...
For a drone? You're joking?
Yeah, like for an intern, for example, you'd need like a driver's license, There were so many barricades.
To operate a drone?
Yeah.
There wasn't people operate with remote controls?
Yeah. So you would be so surprised that requirements were so restrictive.
Yeah.
And they were so clearly specifically targeting a different demographic. Do you understand?
Yes.
Even like now with, for example, when you apply to a job, now AI is your moderator. So of course the biases that you are now confronting, are they interacting with you and they're making a yes and no about you? So you find that, for example, many companies are going to use one AI vendor to assess the whole talent spectrum before even a human looks at it. So you will probably find you're applying to so many jobs. Now, this is relevant for South Africa because we have a stubborn unemployment.
Yes.
So you're job seeking endlessly, which is spiritually destroying. And that
kills you. Yeah.
And literally now you are faced with the problem of how does that system that gives you one no gives a resounding no everywhere else?
Yeah.
Because a one no from there, it means every company won't even consider you because they're using the same bias.
Same tool and same bias, yeah.
So systemically, it's about how do we create governance, even so, how do we appoint those people beyond them just being a paperly qualified person to kind of like govern, but a person who is astute enough in the social dynamics that they're in?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. What do you think?
I mean, like the first thing I'd probably want to do if you're trying to have better governance, it probably would be to try and diversify it as much as possible.
But how do we do that meaningfully? Because, in the past we've done a lot of, for example, even like when you look at the representation of boards, maybe like 30% of, let's say, the Fortune 500 down, which basically controls most of the wealth in the world, is women, right? And majority of those are white women. So
this I did not know.
And for example, LGBT representation, there's like, we only know one name there. So
crazy. In 2026. Okay.
In 2026.
Yeah.
And like black male executives, 2%, less than 2%. So, and those people are people who have like 30 years of experience, 25 years of experience, and they are also disappearing. When you look at the alma maters or the Ivy Leagues, the people who are in their vice chancellor roles and who are like in strategic decision making, in council powers.
Are you saying they're disappearing?
Disappearing. There's little.
Are they disappearing fast enough or?
Very quickly because of what's happening to DI. Remember, like now.
But isn't that a good thing then? It provided that obviously the people that come in and take over are representative of.
But in what way?
They represent I want to say the world population, but essentially, obviously, inclusive. I think I would probably inclusive is like a better word, but because I'm thinking if they're disappearing fast enough, then we are likely to get what we need to see at the top, but we're still not seeing that.
But the thing is, the organogram of the companies are changing because of these tools now that we're living with. So it's no longer like a diamond whereby climb and then triple down economics. Now it's about more of a hexagon situation whereby at the excess point of it you have all these diversity things that need to happen. But there's little room for you to go from that excess to up to the top of the cream. So that means you have to go through so many, the AI ceiling, the glass ceiling, the lavender ceiling, the pink ceiling, whatever, the icebergs and all of those mountains. By the time you get there, it's impossible for you to even make a contribution because the decisions have already been made for you about where you can land.
Fair.
So to what extent do we diversify that thought leadership or that leadership that needs to come in? Because even so, the bias will still remain. Even so, the code switching will still be there. Even so, the dynamics of the social burden will still carry. Inequality has widened. It hasn't really it's deeply widened. The 1% is still getting bigger, in their own way as they desire, and the margins are becoming glaring. So it's a mixed bag, I would say, of hope and maybe illusion about hope.
But until when?
So I think that's where the systemic inclusion becomes more of a grab, because you can't have 100 Thandis. That's exhausting. It's not systemic, it's not sustainable.
No.
And that's where inclusion fell flat, because we relied on our Bandile to do all the work. And there wasn't agency being translated down. There wasn't, managers went to managing things around, inclusion. There's still micromanagement, perhaps. There's still a